Okay, so instead of having us go over this after school, you're just going to do this on your own. You just need to scroll down to where it says week 1, and that's your lab grading rubric right there. So you can open it up, or I didn't want to wait for it, so I'm just going to show it to you directly on Word. Okay, a few things that a lot of students made mistakes on last year. Number 1, the title should describe the work to the reader. Okay, so don't just call this brine shrimp lab, right? Make something that's actually intelligent, that actually includes the variables, and that's original. Other thing is people simply forgot what the purpose of this lab was. So please include that in the introduction. Your introduction is usually only about 2 paragraphs long. Key thing when you write your hypothesis, include a few sentences explaining why you think that's what it is. A hypothesis is a justified prediction. For materials and methods, in this lab, you followed a lab procedure, so you really just need to cite the lab manual. So you can cite the Carolina Biological Supply and put the title in there. When you do your graphs, make sure that they're labeled and that you have both your axes correctly labeled and scaled, and include a descriptive title. You're going to need to provide a sample calculation of hatching viability. Okay, in the discussion, you really need to make sure you compare your results to your hypothesis, and you're going to summarize your results. Please answer the lab questions, and I'll remind you where those are. And don't forget to identify errors and suggestions for improvement or avenues of further research. Also in your discussion, you need to relate this to one of the 4 big ideas. So remember, we have evolution, interaction, free energy, and there's one more that I'm forgetting during this during this recording, but you guys can look it up. Okay, so here is the lab. So go back down, and I just want to point out to you where you find the calculation for hatching viability. Oh, remember when you're doing your table, you need to change the times to whatever worked for you. Okay, so remember 9 a.m. was the 24 hours and 48 hours. Okay, hatching viability. So really this is just about the swimmers. So you want to count up the total number of swimmers on day 1 and day 2 and divide it by the total number of eggs. So let's say that you had 1 swimmer on the first day and 5 swimmers on the second day, and then you had a total of 30 eggs. So you would have 6 over 30, or 20%. Okay, and that would be your hatching viability at that environment. You're going to need to create 3 graphs, not 2 graphs. So the 3 graphs, one of them is going to be a bar graph, and you're going to put the different categories of eggs, dead or partially hatched, and swimmers. And you're going to make 2 different bar graphs, one for 24 hours and one for 48 hours. And then the 3rd graph is going to be a graph of just the hatching viability at the different environments. Okay, make sure you have descriptive titles, make sure that they're scaled correctly, and make sure that you are using appropriate graphs. So you've got 2 bar graphs, and the 3rd graph you could put as a bar graph, or you could put it as a line graph. Decide what you think is more visually appropriate. I'm not going to go over which one's independent and which one's dependent, because you guys should know that by now. All right, so 3 graphs. Then if you go down, you'll see these are the lab questions. So they should be embedded in your discussion, or you can actually just write out lab questions and answer them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They should be written in full sentences. Okay, you guys are in AP Biology, so no bullet points, please. Or you could just include them directly in your discussion. Your discussion will probably end up being, I don't know, 5 to 6 paragraphs in order to include it all, but that's just an estimation, okay? I think that's about it. If you guys have any questions, please email me.